This week's episode of Life Planning 101 originally aired in 2019. Please enjoy. Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Well, very pleasant good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome into Life Planning 101. Terry Slavens with you and joined by Angela Kennedy Robinson. Good morning, Angela.
Yes, good morning. And happy to be here on this Monday morning, even though I walked in a puddle of sweat. So already.
Heat is not a problem right now.
No, it is not a problem at all in the state of Texas. We love it, though, right? We love it. I have a good friend that got to know over the last few years, and he's moving to Texas from Montana. And I kept asking, are you sure you want to do this? He says, I'll have a pool.
Yeah.
So that's right.
Yeah, to our friends in Montana listening, we envy you this morning.
That's exactly right. Your crisp morning. I'm sure you're all wearing a jacket.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. No, I have an awesome show today, and I kind of chose the show. So last week, as soon as I got home from Montana, I took back off to California, and once a quarter, I go to a coaching group. And, I think there's that old saying that we're never too old to have a mentor because you need to have someone that can slap you in the face, right? Right. And, that's so true, I think, for a lot of people. And I'm so blessed because there's people that have multitudes more success than I have ever had or ever dreamt of having in that. And I can learn from them and be able to, just come in there like a sponge and soak up, what they're doing or what their experiences have been, the mistakes they've made, and everything. It's amazing. It's amazing. And the coach himself is amazing. And this kind of today, we're going to talk a little bit about what we talked about, interestingly enough, over the last week. But I'm going to end the show with a trinket because he said, and his question was, do you want to know how to be 10 times more successful starting today? And of course, everybody says yes, right? So, he's going to give us that answer. And so I'm going to share that with you, compliments of Chad Johnson of Strategic Coach. And, it's an amazing thing. But that's what we're going to talk about today is, everybody wanting success. But what is success? And what does that really mean? Because as a life planning firm, we can only do so much. We can only, help with all the tools. And I say we manage success. That's kind of what we do, right? So people want to live their lives and whatever it means to them to be successful, we help manage that success. So they don't have to think about that part. Right. Because I don't think any of us want to focus our attention on our money, want to focus our attention on having to talk to the attorney or the CPA or, having to deal with our insurance or, any of those things, right? What we want to focus on is what we consider the success in our lives, whether it's our faith, family, business, passions, causes, whatever that is, that's what we want to focus on. And so, I think it's very important because when my dad always says, in the insurance business, there's this thing called a persistency ratio of how many people you actually keep as clients, right? Well, in our business, we don't necessarily have a persistency ratio, but we don't lose clients. And I truly believe the reason that we don't lose clients is because we don't take everybody's clients. And so I'm not bragging on ourselves. Right. I'm just saying the fact that we get choosy in who we work with because we have what we call a right fit person to work with.
You don't try to put a square peg in a round hole.
Yes. And, because we are a life planning firm, because we want to see people focus on their life and we really want them to delegate their success issues to us to help them with. Obviously, they're still in the decision maker seat, right? We're just kind of like that mentor, that guide that helps them figure out the options and then implements those for them. It's their implementation team in a sense. But, if all they're focused on is the money and the success, then it doesn't ever work. And it never has worked. And those are the people that we've had continuous problems with because, their minds are in the wrong place. And I had a great sermon first week back in church here in Texas. And I adore our minister, and he was supposed to preach on tithing yesterday, and he didn't. He says, I don't get to show up to the next finance committee, but I'm going to preach on what do you have in your heart, because what you have in your heart is going to be where your focus is, right? It's going to be where you focus everything else in your life, and the tithing, the gifting, none of that matters if you can't get your heart right. And
the tithing will come if your heart is right.
That is right. That is absolutely right. And, the same thing happens with our whole life. That's what I thought of. Right. Our whole life is like that. We always talk about with our kid, we try to explain the fact, I was watching the new Mary Poppins with him yesterday on a 104-degree afternoon, in Texas, right? So I'm watching the new Mary Poppins with him, and he's pointing out to the banker on there. He's like, oh, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy, right? And I said, yeah. He says, well, why does he have to be bad? I said, well, I don't know. He just got the devil in his head, and he's got greed, and he's thinking about the money. Think about that.
Right.
How many times do we go down that path? Every one of us are guilty of fear or greed. Every one of us. If we say we're not, we need to look in the mirror and start telling ourselves the truth. We've all been guilty of that, and maybe not to that degree that we take advantage of someone else, obviously. But, if our heart is focused there, if that's what we focus on, what's going to be the outcome to that? Anything good?
Probably not.
Probably not. So we're going to talk about everyone wanting success, but what is success and that secret sauce to multiplying your success by 10 times by the end of the show right here on Life Planning 101.
Segment 2, Life Planning 101, 10 times successful.
Yes.
I can't wait for the end of the show.
Well, you're going to have to wait. And what's that secret sauce, right? So, and I've been so blessed over this past year. So I have to tell a little bit about Strategic Coach because back in, I think it was 96 or 97, my dad went to coach. And he did it for over a decade. And he brought all the tools into the office, and we implemented and yada, yada, yada. And I've had other coaches through the years, and he kept telling me, you need to go to coach. You need to go to strategic coach. You need to go to strategic coach. And I said, oh, why do I need to go to strategic coach? Because I've been doing all these other coaching programs. We have all these tools. It doesn't make any sense. Well, I'm going to tell you, it has changed my thinking entirely. I mean, I've done a total 180 in the way that I think about things and how I look at things, and we always talk about the little things in life. Those are the things we just need to not pay attention to because they just get a hold of you and rattle you. And, they mean nothing at the end of the day, right? What's the book? Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff.
Yes.
Right? And it's so true, but it's so hard to do when we run that rat race of life, right?
Absolutely.
And there was a entrepreneurial group I got to see this. Gosh, I don't even know how long ago this was. So it was in New York, and I had the pleasure of sitting in front of 5 billionaires. And there was only 20 of us in the room, and we got to interview these 5 billionaires and how they became billionaires and what their struggles were. These were self-made people. And it was interesting because every single one of them was so different in how they got there, how they ran their businesses, how they did with their employees. Everything was so different. And, the one thing that I think they all agreed on, what was success to them. And success to them was getting rid of the have-tos and doing more of the want-tos.
Very good. Getting
rid of the have-tos and doing more of the want-tos. And coach makes you think in this reality, because that's where it all starts, right? It has to all start within you. It's not someone else that's able to tell you to do that. We can tell you to do it all the time and to do it, but we don't do it for one reason or another. I can do it better. I can do it quicker. No, I don't want to leave this with anybody else. I don't trust it. There's multitudes of reasons and excuses we can come up with, but the more that we hold on to those things, the more have-tos we have in life, right? And if you're a business owner, if you're a successful executive, I don't think it matters. We work with both, and I watch both of them run ragged. Okay, they spend their time, and I met with a couple 2 weeks ago, I guess. Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago. And we're sitting there and we're going through this exercise that we do. It's a life planning, living life on purpose type exercise. And we're going through this exercise, and both of them, if they had more time, the one thing that they named separately, independently, was spending more time with family, having less stress, having more time just to sit back and relax. And, I heard those things, and it really got me to thinking for the first time that that's our world today. I don't know if it's these devices that we hold. I don't know. I do kind of blame it on that.
I do too.
Because I think if you went back 20 years ago, we moved a lot slower, right? And that's good and bad. It was good in the sense, though, of your family, and good in the sense of your friends, and spending quality time with people, and not sending text messages, but picking up the phone and calling someone and saying, how the heck are you, right?
There's a restaurant that had you check your phone as you went in.
Love
Everybody
it.
had to check their phone. And they gave some kind of incentive, I don't know, free dessert or free appetizer or something like that. But the owner said it was the parents that had a bigger issue with it than the kids.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes. And so I have to tell myself, okay, so we're in West Yellowstone, right? And we stopped there on the way home and from Montana, and we're going to take the boys through the park the next day. That was going to be our little one-day outing. And so we go into this restaurant, and it says something, there's a sign like that says, we don't have Wi-Fi, sit and talk to each other. That's what it said. Okay, so this is the ironic thing. I've got an email, because I've been working all the way in the car, and I've got an email that has to go out. So I'm like, crud. So I turn on my hotspot, right? Log into my Surface here in this restaurant and send my dang email. And I mean, total guilty as charged right here, right? But this is the thing. That's what I'm talking about. The have-tos.
Right.
The have-tos, right? And we used to be better time managers, I feel like. You blocked. This was work because you couldn't take it home, right? You couldn't take it on the road with you. And in some ways it's great, because at the same time, I did work as we drove home. I mean, gosh, I probably worked 8, 10, 12 hours, who knows, as we were driving. So yes, that was great.
Right.
Especially when you have two kids in the back seat and all you want to do is just turn on the TV and let them watch it, because otherwise they're just going to fight all the way home and say, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Right? And so, that's good. But at the same time, it's an evil to us,
right,
too, because we've let it consume us in a sense. And we've created more have-tos because of it. Success spawns success, which is great. But in this world we live in, you create more have-tos.
Absolutely.
Instead of want-tos. And what was the whole purpose that you did that to begin with, right? What's the whole purpose that you wanted to be successful?
So you could have more time.
Have more time, right? And it's the biggest enemy we have today. It's
Yeah.
the biggest enemy we have. And I think we all do, in a sense. It's a good point to bring up, because we need to sit back. We need to take a moment, and that's what I encourage you to do today. Is I really encourage you, and we've got a good article on this, so you can go on and get it on our newsletter this week at Kennedy-financial.com. And I encourage you to do that, because it's a time for you to sit down, and it's like a series of little questions in here that you can ask yourself. What does success mean to you, and why? Why did you want that success to begin with? And I wish I would have pulled this quote. Didn't think of it. But it was a Zig Ziglar quote I had read like a couple weeks ago. And it was something to the effect that if your success is causing you to be less of a family man, is it really success?
Sure.
Right?
Very good.
Yeah. And so I think we need to back the train up and ask ourselves, what are these important things? And I'll tell you my dad's story. And I know I've told this before, but when I was a young gal, my dad worked himself to death. In fact, if anybody remembers Bill Oswald, he told my dad, he said, if you don't stop doing what you're going to do, you're going to be dead in 5 years. And at the same time, my dad went to coach. He started strategic coach. And so his mind started to change. He started to think a little differently, right? And he ended up, whole long story short, my dad was all of a sudden around all the time. Like, okay, this is interesting.
Where did this guy
come from, right? But he was around all the time, and he became way more successful. How does that work? Ask yourself that question.
Spending more time with the family, but becoming more successful at the same time.
How does that work, right? So it's counterintuitive, we think. We think it's impossible, but we've got to think about how it could be possible. And, one of the things Coach always says, it's not how, it's who. Who is going to help you do that? Not how am I going to do it? Who is going to help you accomplish that? And that's a really good question that we're going to talk a little bit more when we come back on the show right here on Life Planning 101.
Final segment already, Life Planning 101. Angela, this is a segment everybody's been waiting
yes,
for.
I know. How to multiply your success by 10 times overnight. Right? So, and I will get to it, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. So let's talk about the finish line. Okay, what is the finish line? Well, I think, you got to think about, when you think about your success and you think about your life, and we've done shows on this before about where we've said, what would be an unacceptable regret in life? Something that you would never want to have not done or want to have done, right? What would be unacceptable? And, I challenge you to think about the end of life. And we call this the R factor question. We sit down with people and say, if we're sitting here 5 years from today, looking back over those last 5 years, what has to happen for you to feel successful with your progress, right? I think the end of life is a long time. John Maxwell always says, begin with the end in mind, and he talks about the end of life. And I do think you can get there with your thinking, but it's not easy to do because it's so far out there, it's unfathomable.
Right.
But 5 years is something.
At least you hope it's so far out there.
Right. This is true. But 5 years is, within grasp that you can see and you can set your eyes on. So, I challenge you to think about that. Think about the next 5 years and what would be unacceptable and regrets if you just woke up and you're still doing the same thing you're doing today. Is that okay?
No.
Right.
No.
That was quick, Terry.
Yeah.
But it's true though. If we look at it in that perspective, it makes it all different, because how many people do that? How many people wake up 5 years down the road and they're still doing the same thing they were doing 5 years, and they were still cussing about it 5 years ago, and they're still doing it?
But if you don't think about it today,
it doesn't ever
you're going
change.
to be that way in 5 years.
It's exactly right. So you need to take time for you. And that's what this is all about, is to go sit down, get yourself a quiet place. If you got kids, do it after the kids are in bed. Do it when your spouse is away. Don't do it with your spouse the first time. And just sit down and go through, what does success mean for you? Why is it important to you? And then what would be unacceptable in the way of your success path in the next 5 years? And start really lining that out so that you can kind of see what you need to do, and it'll become clear. And one thing I love, I've learned over the past year, is to think about your thinking. Think about your thinking, okay? We don't do this. We never do this, okay? We don't even take time to think, much less think about our thinking, right? Okay, so I want you to think, and then take another hour the next time to go over and look back at what you wrote down and think about your thinking. And I promise you, you're going to have a whole new list of things that come to light that you've never even thought you wanted to do or thought you should do. Okay? It's a crazy thing.
A prime example of this is you clean out a closet.
Uh-huh.
And I don't need this on it. I need this. I need this. I need this.
Right.
2 years later, you clean that same closet out, and those things that you didn't get rid of 2 years ago have not been touched in the last 2 years.
That's right.
So did you really need those?
Yep. Or did you think about your thinking?
Right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because we don't think about our thinking. And to your point, maybe you kept them because you wanted to do something with them. You wanted to have more want-tos.
Right.
And you didn't take the time to have to. So what had to happen to break that mold? Calendarize it, put it down, do something, right? And that was my next step, is to make sure that you're calendarizing these things. You will never get it done. I'm sorry, you won't do it if you do not put it on a calendar. And best thing you do is tell your staff to put it on the calendar, because then it'll make sure and get done. I always love when I hear, "Oh, you're not supposed to be here today." Oh,
okay. Where am I supposed to be?
Where am I supposed to be? Well, we have it marked off. You and Brett are going somewhere. Oh, okay. Well, that's great. So, but it's not going to happen If you don't do it and your team doesn't know about it, it's just not, and you're right. 2 years later, when you go to clean it back out, man, I wish I would have done that. Man, I wish I would have pulled out those skis, or man, I wish I would have done that with my kids. Man, we missed that opportunity, and now they won't even play with us anymore.
Right.
Painful, right?
Absolutely.
Those regrets. That is a great analogy. Love that. So, that's so important. So, I promised you, what is the secret? 10 times success starting today. Okay.
I'm ready.
Well, there's this theory that Dan Sullivan has, and I encourage you to get this book on Strategic Coach. It's called Gap versus the Gain. And we live in the gap. And if you think about it, when you got your first job, like what you made, and you felt so proud of that, right? Can you remember? You felt so proud. What were you making? Probably nothing.
Not much.
Not much at all, but you were proud, right? How long did that take to wear off?
Not long.
Not long. And then you sought something better, and you got something better, and you were proud of that. But how long did that take to wear off?
Not long.
Not long. This is a repetitive cycle that we live in this gap, that it's never enough, that we always need more. Well, I'm going to challenge you to do what they call living in the game. Wake up every single day and write down why you're grateful for the life you have today. Why are you grateful? What is the most powerful things? And I promise you that positive thinking will move you forward quicker than that gap can ever move you forward, because it's all about living in a positive realm versus a negative realm, right?
Yes.
You'll see things in a whole new light. Half the reasons that we don't pick a who over a how is because we're negative about it. Think about it. Think about that. It's really true. Yeah. So start living in that positive world. Start living in that gain. Start living in that gratitude every single day. We do this with our kids. It's the most powerful thing I've seen them do, and it's so cool to watch that. But it's also powerful for us to put things in perspective. I'm so grateful to have my family. I'm so grateful to be a United States citizen. I'm so grateful to be able to do what I do every single day, because if anybody calls what I'm doing right now work, I don't know. They're crazy, right? I love doing this. I love helping people. And I get to do that, and I get to make money doing it. I got to tell Celie that this week. He says, "Mommy, what do you do when you work?" And I said, "I help people." Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Actually, I think he said, "Oh, that's savage." I think that was the words that came out of his mouth. So anyway.
Tell us a little bit. I've been thinking about this throughout the people listening, and you kept referring back to Coach, Strategic Coach. What exactly is this that you go to? It's
all about, making your life about what God made you to be in a sense. It's not spiritual. It's not a Christian, but that's the way I see it.
Right.
Is that here's the way God built me to be, and how can I maximize that in my personal and my professional life? It's extremely powerful. So great question. And just want to thank everyone for listening to the show every week. God bless you, and we wish you the utmost success from all of us at Kennedy Financial Services right here in Eastland, Texas.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.